All right, we are rolling. So I am Dr. Craig Mortensen. This is Nurse Jessica Cardona. And today we are talking about toxins, specifically phthalates. So Phtalates.
English is
Phthalates.
not fun.
No, it is not, especially chemicals. Um, so I know you've mentioned this before. You did a menopause class for a lot of patients and prospective patients, and one of the comments that I heard you make, which I feel very much the same on this, is toxins are actually one of your favorite subjects,
It is.
which kind of seems like a weird thing to say.
Yeah.
So why do you say that? I mean, I have my reasons, obviously, but
Yeah. Well, for me, it's one of my favorite subjects because so many, I would say women, but just people in general don't know. And they're over here using a lot of makeup or perfume to obviously look and smell good, or they think that they're cleaning their house with things. And I'm like, you just have no idea. And it's fascinating once they find out, especially, you know, what and why and what it can cause. And
yeah.
it's like kind of one of those like mind blowing, like your mind's just like, oh my goodness, I didn't know. Here I am just trying my best. And for me, it's just, again, all about the education. And I just like teaching people something new. So I think toxins are something that's not very well known.
No, definitely not. And it becomes very overwhelming, and so many different things that we see today are the direct result of toxins.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell patients, when you kind of start dipping your toe into this stuff, it becomes kind of like, oh my God, the sky is falling, we're all gonna die, go run and
Where's
hide
my
out.
bubble?
Yeah, because it's just insane. So some of the latest statistics currently, so 2024, there's about 100,000 man-made chemicals.
Mm-hmm.
It's estimated that maybe about 6 to 10,000 of those have any testing on how they affect our bodies. And some of the most recent estimates are the low estimates is there's somewhere around 2,000 new chemicals every year. Some estimates are anywhere from 20 to 40,000. Now, I can't anticipate, or I couldn't fathom how there's 20 to 40,000 new chemicals every year. But I've heard many times that there's about a couple thousand new ones.
Yeah,
Um, so it's just crazy.
it is.
So today we are talking about phthalates. We're going to go over what they are, common sources of phthalates, how do they get into your body, the health concerns that are associated with them, how do we reduce our exposure, are there any alternative products for those things, and some different resources for some of the stuff as well.
Yeah.
Now, as we're going through this, our normal disclosure, just because we're doing a blog, this is not medical advice, go see your doctor, blah, 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 all that stuff. So, what are phthalates?
Want me to answer that?
Yeah.
Phthalates are a group of synthetic chemicals. They're commonly used in plastics, which, again, why I love this topic so much. They're really just used in these products to make them like more flexible or durable. And really, it's just a class of chemicals that really can have a huge impact on you. So, really, there's so many different types of phthalates out there. But again, there's acronyms that we can go based off that you may recognize a little bit easier. And that's why, people ask me, well, what am I looking for? So the acronyms are, like DBP, DEHP, BBP, and DINP, which we already talked about how English is horrendous, but there's a bunch of big words that those stand for. But really, that's what you're going to see when you're looking for them on, an item.
Yeah. And
And
so real quick, if you recognize like the BBP,
right.
so if you do see the name, just look at the first letter of each word and that's how you get it, because sometimes they kind of try to like throw it in there as
Yeah.
the name and hide it and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why a lot of people will ask like, how do I find these or what am I looking for?
Yeah.
And it's really difficult because they can hide them. So that's really what phthalates are. But I get a lot of questions like, what are some of the most common sources?
Yeah. And so, you mentioned plasticizers,
Mhm.
but earlier you had also mentioned they're in different solvents. So, like paints, adhesive, and also personal care items, but
Yes.
you wouldn't think that you need a solvent in a personal healthcare product or whatever it is, but they often throw it in there.
Yep.
And then stabilizers as well. And a lot of these things they were developed because of convenience, right?
Hmm.
Plastic has, I mean, it's made everything convenient. Everything comes in a package and all that stuff. And something to think about is, right, we'll talk about kind of the ways that you get exposed to these things.
Hmm.
But even beyond that, they're finding little like plastic particles in fish and in our water. And right, we're breathing it up and all these
Yeah.
things as well.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
Yeah.
Um, so, what are kind of the main health issues that we typically see in our practice?
Well, number one, and again, this is always my favorite subject, and
Mm,
unfortunately, they're, hormonal disruption. They are known as an endocrine disruptor, and that's probably my favorite word.
yeah,
I don't really know why. I just kind of it grew on me, and I've taught my kids and I quiz them, and even my little guy who's turning 8, when I talk about a product, I'm like, what is that? If he says endocrine disruptor, I get really excited because I've taught him something. But again, an endocrine disruptor either blocks or mimics our hormones, especially estrogen and testosterone. So you can imagine the effects that it has on us. So, part of my journey and really getting the word out there is teaching these little girls and boys, right? Because they're just developing. So, it can cause like obviously developmental delays. And then obviously down the road, like some reproductive issues. If we're talking about estrogen and testosterone, I mean, you think about it and it could be lowering our levels. And again, or just causing delays.
huge. Yeah, and that's part of the reason why all these fertility, like our fertility rates, are
Yep.
so much lower.
Yeah.
Breast cancer, prostate, testicular, and then you
Yep.
mentioned the developmental problems, so like cognitive issues, behavioral problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just crazy. So, kind of interesting statistic. So, in the 1920s, the average age of like girls' first period was around
Mm,
14 to 15 years old.
yep.
Now, it's not uncommon for 9 and 10-year-olds.
9.
It's insane.
Yes.
Yeah.
What age did you start? I'm just kidding.
Yes, I'm still waiting.
Oh, you're so lucky.
I'm
Late
still hoping.
developer
Yeah.
there.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I started when I was 16, and I think we live in a completely different world than we do now.
Yeah.
Um,
Did you say you were 16?
I was 16. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But my niece, my husband's sister, so my niece,
Hmm.
she started at 9, and
Yeah.
I cannot forget this, but she texted my husband and said, "Hey, she started." And I was like, "Started what?"
Right.
Like it hadn't even crossed my mind. I was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
"Wait, 9?" I was like, "She's still a baby."
Oh, totally.
Um and not everybody lives in our world. So when they don't, you do start to see the repercussions of it, and
Yeah.
it's mind-blowing. So a lot of my patients have mentioned that their children has started at the age of 9, and like what can they do? So that was, kind of a goal of mine, and making sure
Hmm.
that my kids weren't exposed to these things so they do not have, um, I would say, that luxury of starting at 9, but it's definitely not a luxury.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would kind of say for parents of girls that haven't started their period yet, and you kind of get on this detoxification bandwagon,
Yeah.
when they start their period is kind of a good indication of how good have you done kind of keeping toxins
Yes.
away from your family.
Yes.
because it should be 14 or 15 years old, even better 16.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this, one of the scary things with these phthalates is it's not just direct contact. You get off gassing that can last for months to years
Yes.
on a lot of this stuff.
Yes.
So you had kind of mentioned the uses of it in plasticizers, solvents, stabilizers. So what are kind of some top the top areas where we do get exposure to these things?
Um, Definitely ingestion. I mean,
Hmm.
they are either in our food or our water, right? Because let's be real, a lot of people still use plastics to
Mhm.
put their food in and even reheat in them. Packaging, like you had mentioned, you can't get anything that's not in plastic, right?
Yeah.
And then it's just it is contaminated in our water sources. And if you're not filtering your water like you should be, then
Yeah.
you could find it in there.
Yeah.
You definitely
Even
had,
then, it still might be getting through somewhat.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I mean, plastic water bottles, right? Everybody
Yeah.
uses them.
Yeah.
Even
And then,
skin contact is huge because um, a lot of, again, people just are like, where do we find these? And they're in our personal care products. And if you're not looking for them, it is very easy to use something that has it in it. And, the biggest organ is the skin. And if you use from head to toe, I mean, that's exposure every single day over and over and over.
yeah. And right, like fragrances, you mentioned the
Yeah.
phthalates, but there's also other things. And a lot of those fragrances really mess up your thyroid. I mean, thyroid cancer rates and all that stuff is just insane right now.
Yep.
Um, in our notes here, so we also have like toys, like a lot
Mm.
of kids' toys, especially like
It's
the
the
teething
baby.
toys. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I
Um,
know.
and then flooring, so
Hmm.
particularly like vinyl flooring and these engineered woods. So I don't know. This was before you came on with us, but did you hear about in 2019 the lumber liquidators whole kind of debacle?
No.
So 2019, there was a class action lawsuit against lumber liquidators because of their flooring that they were having made in China
Mm.
was way higher in formaldehyde than what it was legally allowed to be,
Mm.
which is right an embalming fluid, basically, is what
Mhm,
formaldehyde is,
mhm.
and all kinds of people were getting sick from it. Now, formaldehyde is different than these phthalates, but it just shows you. I mean, you get all that stuff and it off
Yeah,
gases, and you get exposed to it.
yeah,
And then furniture is kind of the same thing. So I
yep.
often recommend when people go, like, if you need furniture, save some money, and when you can, buy off of Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace. Buy something that's slightly used, so it's kind of already
Mhm.
off gassed a lot of that crud.
Yeah,
Um, And then, so
yeah.
you had mentioned, I think the plastic containers, bottles, canned foods,
Mhm.
the linings on the canned foods. So
Yep,
you always want to use glass or stainless steel when you can.
yep.
And I think you had mentioned already like the fragrances, nail
Mhm.
polish, household products. And then previously you had mentioned a lot of cleaning agents.
Yes.
Any particular ones that were kind of interesting to you?
That people use or like
Well, I guess what type
alternatives?
of? Well, both.
So, I mean, I think people's favorite product for whatever reason is bleach. Like
Yeah.
they're obsessed. And I think just any cleaning product is very, very toxic. So
Mm.
just trying like very, very simple using homemade solutions, which usually can contain just vinegar and a little bit of water. I
Yeah. Oh,
mean,
yeah.
it does a better job than you would expect. And we use a lot of essential oils too, which are nice and easy to just add to a little bit of water. So as long as you're understanding what you're using is toxic, you can make that change easily.
Yeah, and there's a lot of alternatives. Like
Yeah.
the essential oils are great for actually like insect repellents also.
Oh, yeah.
You spray that around your house.
Is it peppermint or
Peppermint's one of them. I think eucalyptus is another one that's commonly used.
tea tree we use
Tea
for
tree
like
oil.
mosquitoes? That's a good one.
Yeah, mosquito bites works great too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, one particular thing that I thought was interesting, like cleaning agents, like I think a lot of people would be kind of aware of like, man, cleaning agents they kind of expect them to be toxic, right?
I would hope so.
Yeah, I would hope so too. I'm still surprised how many people don't.
Oh, me too.
But one thing that I've always thought about, but you had kind of in our notes, you had put down air fresheners. It's like, well,
Mm,
yeah, to me or to us, it's like kind of like, well, yeah, duh, right? Um, I always think about those Glade plug-in air fresheners, and
atrocious.
oh, it's so bad. So I looked up Glade air freshener ingredients, right?
Mm,
And in 2021, there was some independent testing that was done on these plugins, and they found phthalates in them.
surprise, surprise.
Surprise, surprise, yeah. And what I don't know if Glade is the parent company or whatever parent company is. They said it was a quote contamination issue. Okay, sure, whatever.
Really?
Yeah. So I don't know if any testing has been done since then, but I just find it suspicious.
Slightly.
Yeah, yeah.
Conveniently.
Very convenient. Yeah, yeah. It's always a contamination issue. It's whatever.
Yeah, sure.
Building materials, paint, sealants, all that stuff. So you want to look into that when if and when the time comes time to redoing your house.
Yeah.
You want to look into that stuff. I mean, when we redid our flooring, we did all like hardwood, non VOC, formaldehyde free, all that stuff. You end up paying a little bit more for it, but the more people buy it, the cheaper it becomes.
That and like your long term, like just knowing about it, right? And you guys making that option to make it available in your house. I mean, long term effects. I
Yeah.
mean, you're not going to be exposed to it. And I think a little bit more money for a better health is always going to be worth it.
100%. Yeah. My dad's saying has always been, "I can't take it with you."
Yeah,
Right. So, your
that's
health and
right.
family, everything else is just stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Medical devices.
Oh my gosh.
So, I mean, this is stuff that you see every day.
Yeah, the IV bags, it
Yeah.
kills me. I mean, it makes zero sense, right? We're literally putting it straight to the source, into your vein,
Yeah.
and we hang it in a plastic bag.
Yeah. But, at the same time, I do kind of understand, like, well, we don't really have an alternative in that situation. At least that I see.
No, you know what? We do hang our Tylenol in a glass container.
Do you?
It's an
Why is
option.
that?
I wish I knew.
That's interesting.
But yeah, our Tylenol IV is hung in a glass container.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
But that's the only one I've ever seen.
Yes.
All the rest of them are nice plastic IV bags.
Well, there you go. Tylenol's looking out for your health.
Yeah, I would hope so. You know what the other thing is? Catheters.
Yeah, yeah.
Whether it's the IV or the
Yeah.
urinary catheters, I mean, a lot of people do get reactions, which
Yeah.
you would understand why.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So this is a little bit off topic, but kind of on this. Did I ever tell you about my patient that worked in a hospital? The whole bismuth thing?
I don't think so, because
Did I tell you
besides me,
about
I wouldn't have known. Yeah.
So some of the most toxic patients that we generally see are dental hygienists, dentists, nurses, doctors, machinists. Those are
Mhm.
kind of like, well, construction workers. Those are kind of like the most toxic patients. So I had a patient not too long ago. He came in and maybe about a year ago, but he was kind of a younger guy. He was maybe late 30s, early 40s, and he has Parkinson's like symptoms.
Mm.
Right. So this is kind of getting like the shake, and it was only like on one side. And they're like, well, they don't really know why you're getting it. You're too young typically to have this.
Mhm.
And long story short, we did a heavy metals test on him, and his bismuth was like crazy, crazy high. And his work with cleaning agents, because he worked kind of like the janitorial, like kitchen
Okay.
side of things. Well, all the cleaning agents and the medications and all that stuff has bismuth in it. And one of the side effects of it is Parkinson's like symptoms.
Isn't that crazy?
It's just, yeah, it's like, oh, man, I felt so bad for the guys. I mean, he's just trying to make a living and
Yeah.
provide for his family, and now he's got Parkinson's. Okay. Should be recording.
Yep.
I will try my best not to touch anything.
You are a fidgeter.
I am a fisher. Yes, I am. So earlier, you talked about how these phthalates get into our system,
Mhm,
and you mentioned like food and water.
mhm.
What are some other ways that we get exposed to these things?
I mentioned like the skin contact from
Mhm.
things that we use on our body. Um, we had kind of discussed, or you had mentioned, inhalation because they leach off.
Yep.
And then,
I think those are really kind of the
yeah, I think we
main
covered
areas, right?
everything.
Like the skin contact, right? Or
Yeah.
the yeah. And then there's kind of environmental exposure. It's in dust and soil, right? When you do house remodeling, definitely wear a mask. Make sure there's good ventilation and get rid of that stuff. Um, and then I think we kind of went over a lot of the main health concerns. Is really kind of like hormone stuff is kind of
Yeah.
top of the list.
Yeah.
Uh, Estrogen, testosterone disruption,
Hmm.
reproductive stuff, PCOS in females, you had touched on as well,
Yeah. That one's huge.
and then well, the developmental problems as well,
Yeah.
which I mean we both get a lot of those ADD, ADHD, OCD.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think COVID kind of made all this stuff way worse.
Agreed.
Um, but what about as far as like any type of statistics or like how many people actually have this stuff in their system?
Yeah. So there's one that said it's so common, up to 95% of the US population has been exposed at some level.
And it's in their
95%.
system. That's crazy. Well, so what is curious about that for me is who's the other 5%?
They just didn't get to them.
Whether they live in Alaska or Antarctica or yeah, I don't know.
I would want to know too, because I would
Yeah,
want to know what they're doing that we're not.
yeah. I interesting study, and I can't remember when I read this or the source of it. So, but it was they found that before a baby's even born, there's over 200 chemicals already in their umbilical cord.
Yes. Isn't that mind blowing? Like,
That's just crazy.
trying to make us feel a little worse over here being mom.
Yeah,
Jeez, all the
Chicken
things
Little. I feel
that
like
I
yeah,
know. Sorry, we're not perfect, guys.
yeah. And we always tell patients like we don't claim to walk on water. We're not
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
Like no matter how perfect you are, you're still going to get exposed to it somewhat.
Yeah.
In the I get a lot of patients, and I'm sure you do too. Is like when we start going over the stuff and kind of explaining and like dumping all this information on somebody, and they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh
Yeah.
my god, um, this is not about being perfect. It's just about you do the best that you can and control what you can, so that when you can't control things, it doesn't affect you because
Right.
everything is an additive thing."
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, what are some tips on like how do we go about finding like phthalate free things?
Yeah, and this is one of the things that I like to teach my patients about too is your new job must be to look at labels. It really has to be.
Becomes a lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just something that you're going to have to learn, and then again it just becomes so incredibly natural. Like, I even have my kids looking at the labels, which they don't really know what they're looking for, but they try.
Sure.
But you really want to look for like phthalate free or like free from phthalates. A really good source, which this is exactly how I started, even before meeting you, Dr. Craig, is I use the EWG app.
Hmm.
I literally didn't know what I was doing, but the app did all the work for me. So
Yeah.
it really does break down every single item that you scan, and it grades it number one, which I found fascinating. So
Yeah.
it grades it from like 0 to 4. 0 being the best, 1 being better, 2 being, okay, 3 or 4, just throw it out. But it also broke it down by ingredients. And again, like back then, I really didn't know what I was looking for. But now when you do, you can really understand what those ingredients are really, what they are and what they're doing to you. So again, just super simple choices to make is avoid using things with fragrance. So a lot of like unscented products or fragrance free, that's definitely
Mhm.
the route that you want to go for. Looking at the labels and making sure it says like USDA organic or, the natural ingredients. You
Yeah.
just, again, don't want to use those harmful chemicals. And then just once you start to get a little bit more familiar about, certain products, there are brands that you are going to start, looking out for and just kind of sticking to those that you already know are clean. So again, it's going to get easier and easier as you
Yeah.
more familiar with these things.
And there's so many, like in
I know.
reality, an easy tip is like if you can't pronounce it, probably don't buy it.
Oh, 100%.
But I
Or
mean,
if your
apps
list
like,
is like this big.
oh yeah, I mean, 100,000 chemicals, like you can't keep track of all that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and that's where those apps are indispensable. I mean,
Yeah.
and Yucca is another good one. YUCA,
Yep.
that one's a great one. It's something that we often kind of forget to tell people is the marketing and companies, they're always
Mm,
trying to
greenwash.
uh brainwash, but also hide things. So I noticed in one of your notes here, fragrance or parfum. Parfum. Oh, that sounds so good, right? Uh, but they're just changing the word, right?
Yes.
It's like BPA free doesn't really mean anything because all they do is they take the A and they change it to an S. Now it's BPS instead of BPA
Correct.
and all
Correct.
that stuff.
All the letters.
Yeah. Similar thing is organic versus natural.
Hmm.
So natural actually really doesn't mean a whole lot. It's just a marketing term. Whereas
Hmm.
if it's organic, then there is some regulations behind that right? It has to be herbicide, pesticide, it has to be like no hormones, all that stuff. Whereas like natural actually doesn't mean any of that stuff. Which is just crazy to me.
Yeah, I know. You understand why our patients are like, what?
It's just
They're
yeah.
like, just tell me what to buy.
Yeah, no, really, they a lot of, and this is something that I've wanted to do for a long time. We've just never sat down and done it, but
Yeah.
yeah. Another company that we recently started carrying in the office, Bella Hue. So you can, I think you can get that on our website, which is Premier IFM. Talked about the cleaning ingredients or alternatives.
Yeah.
I really like the sodium bicarbonate, citric acid, and the vinegar. I think that you had mentioned.
Yeah.
Do you ever
Yep.
do? Do you guys do your own yard work at your house?
Yeah. Well, yeah, none of the bad stuff is.
Yeah. So have you used vinegar for like a weed killer?
I don't think Jesse has.
Oh, it
I
works great.
think um I think he just goes old fashioned and he pulls them.
Oh, does it good for him? Yeah, I mean that really good. So I tend to get a little bit lazy when I'm at home doing it. So there's actually a good concoction that I found. So you take one of those like pump spray bottles
Yeah, yeah.
and take just like cheap vinegar, pour a whole gallon of that in there. Go get some cheap whiskey. You dump the whiskey in there, and then you do like a cup of salt and then a pretty big squeeze of like Dawn soap.
Okay.
Shake it all around, and then you spray that on your weeds. Works fantastic.
I'm sure Jesse's gonna wash this and now steal that. So now he could be lazy.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see. Plastics. That's really kind of one of the main
Yeah,
sources.
yeah.
Um,
And that's an easy one. I mean, just switching to glass or stainless steel, like you said,
uh,
that will correct everything. And a lot of my patients who have babies too, like will start to not an excuse, but really be a little nervous about changing those.
sure.
And I've had plenty of experience with either other patients or friends who use glass baby bottles and they're just covered and protected.
Yep.
And don't be afraid of it. You have to understand that you need to make a change for your baby and don't be afraid of breaking it because honestly, you can buy another one
Right.
or they're quite protected. So I get a lot of patients just getting nervous to change those kid products, but don't be.
Yeah. And a lot of people ask, like, well, a bunch of stuff comes in plastic.
Yeah.
So what do you say to that?
I mean, you can't change what it comes in, but I definitely take it out right away. So you
Yeah.
take it out right away and you store it in a glass container in your fridge.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you do?
It is, but so you had mentioned in our notes here, frozen foods or
Yeah,
fresh, right? So if you buy it fresh, you put it in the bag, take it out of the
correct.
plastic bag when you get home.
Correct.
But
Correct.
so, and this kind of applies to a lot of things, the things that influence how how much of a chemical you get absorbed, particularly phthalates in foods.
Mm-hmm.
So things that increase it are air,
Mm-hmm.
heat,
Mm-hmm.
light,
Mm-hmm.
temperature,
Mm-hmm.
fat content. Is it acidic or alkaline? Acidic
Mm-hmm.
will typically absorb more.
Yep.
And then also time of contact. So all of those things make a big difference. So if you're buying like frozen foods, well, you've pretty much eliminated air, you've eliminated heat, probably
Right.
light because it's a different thing, right? It's in the bag,
Right.
and then you've eliminated temperature.
Mm-hmm.
So now it really doesn't become an issue, or at the very least, you've
Decreases it.
significantly
Yeah.
decreased. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so let's see. Ingredient lists. So we kind of talked about like the different
Yeah.
abbreviations. Um, certifications. So tell me a little bit about the kind of the different certifications that are good to look at.
So, like you had said, it can be misleading
Mm-hmm.
because some of your products will advertise phthalate free on the packaging. So you want to kind of like you said, look for green certifications and really just using the EWG app or the Yucca. I know Yucca does a lot with food.
Mm-hmm.
So those are really great options um, to look for. Eco Cert, or it says Leaping Bunny for cruelty free, obviously, if you want to
Yeah,
go beyond.
I
And
like that name for whatever reason. It's
Leaping
kind of
Bunny.
cute, right? Leaping bunny.
Why do they always use bunnies? I always wondered that. Just because they're so cute?
Well, because they reproduce so fast,
Ah, okay. Fun
so they
fact.
can. Unfortunately, they can
Make
burn
a lot
through
of
them
them.
quick. Yes. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Fun fact.
And then you mentioned so fragrance free. It's less likely that it has that stuff, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't.
Yeah, I literally just say just avoid them altogether. And there's, like you had said, there's so many like sources now
Mm-hmm.
that you can kind of use if you still want a product that has a fragrance. So a big one that we use at our house, or the only one that we use at our house, is essential oils.
Yeah. And my personal favorite smell, vanilla. I mean, you can't go wrong with vanilla.
You're not gonna like me.
Why?
I don't like vanilla.
You don't? That
No.
smells so good.
I know
Cinnamon. I
everybody
like
loves
cinnamon too.
okay, I love cinnamon, but vanilla, no, I can't.
uh,
I know I'm a weirdo.
you're so weird. Yeah, that is
I
weird.
know.
You had mentioned the different apps. So it used to be called Think Dirty, but the other day you told me that it's actually not called that anymore.
Yeah, no, because I still have it, and when you look at it on your phone, it's literally just a green circle. Now, let me see if I can pull it up. Um, I think it's just called EWG.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I
Oh,
think
it's
that's
called Healthy Living now.
okay. Well,
Healthy Living.
yeah. I mean, that's good. Think Dirty
Yeah,
kind
I
of
mean,
makes you think dirty.
well, that's why you're like, it's so misleading.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I think, like, think dirty, like your products are so dirty.
Sure.
Ingredients.
You even said that dirty.
You have to.
I know. I always tell patients like it's kind of misleading. So when you like, make sure you're downloading the right app when you download this
I
app.
know. I
Yeah,
just tell people in your app store, do EWG and it'll pop up.
yeah. It's the first one that comes up.
Can't go wrong.
Yeah. All right. We talked about cleaning product alternatives, laundry detergents. That's another thing to kind of watch out for.
Nail
Um,
polish.
yes, nail polish. And those gel nails. I don't know if
Yes.
those contain it. I think new nail polish does. I can't imagine it doesn't contain it because it lasts for
100%.
so long.
100%.
And those just destroy your nails, time and
Yes.
time again.
I don't know how girls do it. Number one,
Mm.
it doesn't ever come off. So how do you get it off? And number two,
Oh, yeah.
if you have to continuously paint your nails because your real one is tore up from your nail polish,
Yeah. Probably not a good sign.
probably not.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we love Ella Mila from
Huh.
Target. Well, we get it from Target, but you can get it from pretty much anywhere nowadays. But we started off with piggy paint
Yeah.
for like the littles, and it comes off literally. You could scrape it, and then
Oh, nice.
yeah. So
I like that name too, Piggy Paint. That's
piggy
cute.
paint. It's cute for the kids, so
That
that's
is
why we
totally,
started
yeah.
using it really young. So they
Yeah.
really do have great options nowadays, and mine is like about to be a week old, so it still stays. It's good.
Okay.
So I like the alternatives.
Very nice. And then the food storage, we talked about that glass or the stainless steel.
Yep.
If and when you can, freeze it. Right?
Yes.
Vacuum bag it, freeze it if you need it to last longer. Let's see.
No
Oh,
water bottles.
no water bottles, definitely no. You can jump on the whole Stanley bandwagon if you want. Hydro
Or Hydro
Flask.
Flask.
Hydro Flask, yeah. So my cheap alternative, Contigo. I like
Yeah.
Contigo. That's just the Costco brand.
Yeah.
Let's see what else here.
Toys. Again, all my patients
Toys,
for like the
huge.
little ones, like go for wood. I mean, there's so many great little pop-up shops that are now making
Oh,
their
yeah.
own wooden toys, and babies really don't care, guys. They don't
No.
care if it's wood.
No, they don't. I like going in the old school toy stores. Like it's interesting. A lot of times when we go travel different places, like we go camping and we go to, Colorado or Utah, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
there'll be like an old school like toy store. And even our kids now, my son's 19 and my daughter's 16, going on 30. They're like, oh, there's like an old school toy store. Let's go
Toy
check it
store.
out. It's like, okay, I guess.
Hey, they never grow out of being a kid. That's okay.
No, yeah, that's good. Let's see. Food packaging. So plastic bags, like for lunches and all that stuff. Yeah, I get it. It's very convenient. You can do alternatives.
Yeah.
But something in our notes and what we do all the time is like if we go on a hike and we're going to use a plastic bag, wrap it in something, right? Wrap it in a paper towel or like
or the beeswax.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Just create a barrier so it's not in contact with it.
Yeah, people ask me about that all the time, and I'm like, that's a great option. I love our little beeswax, and like you said, we wrap it first and then we put it in a plastic bag,
Yep.
or we use the stainless steel like little bento boxes. Those are great for your kids too. So, and they can come big or small. So there's so many great options that you have to kind of just explore.
Yep. And then last but not least, any particular books or resources that you're a big fan of?
Yeah, well, especially from you, which I still have. I stole, apparently, this book right here. This is what got my journey started. So it's The Toxin Solution by Joseph. I can't say his last name, but you can see it on there. Yeah. This was such an amazing book. This really just made me take a deep dive and really understand everything that what was around me, basically wanted me to put myself in a bubble.
Yes.
So I highly recommend this book. It's an easy read. And he does an amazing job about explaining, everything.
Yeah. And I would just end it with, don't run around like Chicken Little, your head cut off, the sky's falling, but create a bubble.
Yeah.
Right. Make your house, your home, your apartment, whatever.
Yeah.
Make it a bubble, make it your safe area so that at least when you're there, you're good.
Yeah.
Right. Then when you go out, you don't have to worry about it as much.
Exactly.
You still want to be able to enjoy life somewhat and not have to stress about every little thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else to add to this stuff here, Jessica?
No, just I would begin slow. Begin where you can and make it a fun journey. That's what I did, and we're still on it. So we're always exploring new products. Do your best, and that's all we ask of you.
Yeah, very good. Good discussion.
Yeah.
Good job. All right. I'm Dr. Craig. There's Jessica, and we are done.
See you
Peace
next
out.
time.
Bye.
Bye.